They were walking away from the drilling office when the lights stopped flickering and went dead. He and Catfish took out their flashlights and continued pushing the cart. The close-walled corridors made the diesel exhaust that much more pungent. Calhoun hoped they made it to some fresh air soon, or they'd risk carbon monoxide poisoning. Terry and Aaron hadn't said a word since Joel's death. What Calhoun had seen on their faces told him they'd already given up. Considering one was on point and the other covering their rear, that didn't exactly fill him with confidence. If they didn't do their jobs, the whole mission was fucked. From the other side of the rig walls, they heard the sounds of banging, ripping metal, and screams. Calhoun gritted his teeth. Shauna's team was in trouble. But there wasn't a damn thing he could do about it. Not yet. The men they'd left on the deck should be preparing for the explosive shots. He hoped Vrabel had chosen the right crew for that. Wireline could be tricky, and the amount of concrete they'd have to pour after the shots was going to be intense. Of course, if the thing below the ocean surface decided to get nasty, it wouldn't matter. The rig would be matchsticks. Terry's lamp filled the corridor with light, and the group moved a little faster than they had before. The roughneck up front was either too terrified to stay still, or he just didn't care anymore. Neither possibility boded well. As they passed a door marked storage, Calhoun called a halt. "Terry, you have a key to this room?" Terry shook his head. "Gomez, Vrabel, and the quartermaster have those." Calhoun pointed his light at the lock and grinned. He stepped far enough away for a kick and then planted his boot right at the lock. His leg shook with the recoil of hitting steel, but the door popped open. "Guess nothing in there is too important," Catfish said. Calhoun said nothing as he examined the room with his flashlight. 2 cases of D-cell batteries were stacked in the corner alongside bottled water and a case of energy bars. He trained the light over the rest of the boxes. "More flashlights in here," he said. "We probably need to stock up." He opened the box and pulled out 5 of the heavy flashlights. He turned on each to make sure their batteries were good and then handed them backwards to Catfish. "Find a place for those." "A place? Like where? My fucking pants have pockets?" Calhoun turned and glared at the tech. Catfish brushed away a stray lock of hair and took the black cylinders. "We also need to figure out how to get these batteries out of here," Calhoun said. Then he saw what he really wanted, and grinned. "Perfect." Coils of heavy nylon rope hung from pegs on the wall. Calhoun took one and put his head through its center. It would be awkward, but he could take at least 2. He handed the others to Catfish. There was an emergency medical kit as well. Calhoun grabbed it and handed it backwards to Catfish. "What are we doing here?" Catfish asked. "This isn't Walmart." "Shut up," Calhoun said. Boxes, boxes, and more boxes. He scanned the labels. There was a box of canned food, one marked coffee, and another whose label was torn. Calhoun frowned at the cardboard box and then opened it. Bingo. He pulled out 3 duffel bags, the PPE logo emblazoned on their sides. He didn't know what fabric they were made of, but they seemed heavy enough. He placed the medical kit and the energy bars in one and handed it back to Catfish. "Put the lights in there, too." Catfish grabbed the duffel but didn't say anything. Calhoun was glad the man was finally shutting the hell up. Calhoun went over chemical recipes in his mind. If he could just find the right ingredients, he could fashion a bomb, or a bead of sweat fell from his brow. The room was getting warm. He reached forward and put his hand against the wall. The sheetrock was hot to the touch. "Shit," he said. He stepped back out of the small area. "We need to move. Now." "What's wrong?" Catfish asked. "The rig is on fire," Calhoun said. "Might be electrical. I don't know. Doesn't matter. We're fucked if we don't get to the other side." He closed the door to the storage room and looked at Terry. "Let's go." Catfish coughed. "Getting hard to breathe, boss." "I know," Calhoun said. "Start moving. Now." He and Catfish pushed the generator cart, their flashlights on and at the ready. They took turns shining their lights up at the vents as they moved forward. They came to a junction, and Terry stopped. "Holy shit," he said. "Can't go starboard, the floor's all buckled, and I see smoke and fire at the other end." "Coming toward us?" Calhoun asked. Terry nodded. "We gotta go the other way." "Then move!" Even Calhoun was surprised by the growl that came out of his mouth. The fire meant Shauna's team was trapped in the bridge if they hadn't already gotten out. He gritted his teeth and hoped they were still alive. Black smoke wafted through the AC vents. Shauna and the others could barely breathe, and the room was already uncomfortably warm. The bridge shook as something exploded out in the hall. She was sure it was the generator. If nothing else, burning diesel fuel was adding to the flames burning up the creature beyond the hatch. But it didn't matter unless they found a way off the bridge. She looked at the windows. "Bill, can we break those?" He turned and looked at them, a maniacal grin slowly spreading across his face. "We could sure as hell try." The roughneck picked up one of the heavy rolling chairs from the bridge console, lifted it into the air, and swung it into the middle window. The wheelbase smashed into the heavy plexiglass with a crash of metal, the transparent glass spider-webbed with cracks. Bill pulled the chair back for another swing and slammed the chair forward. The glass detonated outward with a crackle, shards falling to the deck over 100 feet below. "Fucker," Bill said. He made his way to the next window. It disappeared with a crunch. Smoke escaped through the wide windows. Shauna stuck her head near the opening and breathed deep. The air smelled of diesel, rain, and salt. Compared to the stench of acrid smoke and unwashed bodies, it was a glorious scent. "That's going to pull the fire toward us," Gomez said. His face was ashen. She wasn't sure why he kept clutching his chest, but she could tell his wounds were damned severe. She nodded. "That's why we have to get out of here." She peered out the window. The dark clouds veiled the deck in twilight. Powerful work lamps cast their white glow over the men working near the drill string turntable. "Up here! Hey!" she yelled. The men didn't look up. Shauna ground her teeth. They couldn't hear her over the roar of machinery. She thought for a moment and looked at the flare gun in her hands. "Gomez, how the fuck do we get out of here?" He blinked, and then his eyes went glassy. She stepped forward and slapped him across the face. His eyes crossed and then focused on her. "What?" "How do we get out of here?" she asked again. Gomez pointed at the wall. She followed his finger and saw the wrapped coil of fire hose behind the glass. "You have to be kidding me." "Use it as a rope," he said. "Maybe it'll reach." "No way it will reach," she said. "We'd break our legs in the fall." He shook his head. "Not if you hit the ledge." Shauna stuck her head out the window. The bridge protruded from the rest of the rig superstructure, but only by a few feet. All she could see was the deck. "Bill, grab my legs." The roughneck put his strong hands around her calves and she climbed through the window. She looked down. There was a ledge. It was at least 50 feet down. "Okay," she said. "Bring me back." Bill pulled her back from the window. Jagged shards of plexiglass cut through her khakis, but she ignored the pain. She stared back at the fire hose. "No way that thing's gonna hold our weight," Bill said. "Have to go one at a time, and even then it'll probably snap out of the wall." "We need to cut it and tie it to something," she said. Vrabel groaned on the floor. He sat up and wiped an ooze of blood from his forehead. His nose was crooked and his lips split. Shauna wasn't sure, but he might have broken a tooth. "We safe?" he asked. "Not really," she said, "but this is better than the hallway." He shook his head and winced. "God damn, that floor is hard." "Yeah," Bill said. "Lucky you're alive, boss." "Can you move?" Shauna asked the rig chief. He flexed his fingers and slowly got to his feet. He wobbled for a second, and Bill moved to catch him. Vrabel waved him away and managed to stabilize himself. "I can move, just don't ask me to run very fast." "May not be an option," Shauna said. "Bill, let's see how long that hose is." He nodded and hit the glass door release. The fire hose spindle swung wide. He inspected the bolts holding it to the wall. "Man, I really don't know if this is gonna hold." Outside the hatch, something crashed. "Not sure we have a choice," she said. "Hurry, we need to count it out." They spun the wheel and pulled the fire hose off the wall. She estimated it was 50 to 60 feet in length. It was just enough to get them down to the ledge. Maybe. "We're going to lose at least 10 feet if we keep it attached to the wall," she said. Vrabel's eyes stared around the room, and then he smiled. "There," he pointed at the console. A steel support leg was bolted to both the console and the floor. "We can wrap it around that." Bill nodded, produced a knife from his belt, and began cutting and tearing at the hose fitting. A moment later, he had the hose ripped apart at the coupling. He grabbed the chewed end and tied it around the support. "Ladies first?" he asked. Shauna shrugged. "No offense, but I am the lightest. We're going to have to figure out a way to move Gomez." Gomez shook his head. "I'll make it. Just get down there." Bill wrapped the hose around her waist. "Try not to fall. If you do, you're fucked." "Then why wrap it around me?" He grinned. "Just in case it doesn't kill you?" "Great." She turned to the bridge windows, took a deep breath, and then slowly climbed up onto the console. She clenched her hands around the hose and slowly lowered herself into the air. Bill held the hose in his large hands, Vrabel behind him and holding the slack in case Bill lost his grip. They lowered her. Exhausted from pushing the hand truck through the halls, her arms screamed in pain. She grunted and held on. The rough hose bit into her flesh, making it difficult to keep her grip. A whimper escaped her lips as strips of skin on her palms ripped away. She kept descending and was past the lip of the bridge. "How much slack?" she yelled upward. "You got a little," Bill yelled back. "Just swing out and get to the goddamn ledge." They lowered her another meter. Her feet were nearly parallel with the ledge. Shauna shifted her weight and started to swing. Her feet hit the wall and slowed her swing. She waited until she was just above the ledge and let the hose slip through her grip. Her feet touched down on the ledge. She exhaled a sigh of relief and unwrapped the hose from her waist. "I'm good," she yelled upward. After a moment, the hose slithered upward beyond the overhang. The ledge lip was no more than a meter wide. She held out her arms, put her back against the wall, and slowly made her way to the starboard side. She didn't want the next person to smack into her when they started their swing. "Coming down," a voice yelled from above. Shauna waited. A light rain fell from the sky, punctuated by flashes of lightning and the roar of thunder. A gust of wind hit her skin and goose flesh broke out on her arms. After the hot box of the fridge, it felt like heaven. She stared at the red, puffy skin of her palms, blood lazily welling out from the cuts. She was going to have a hell of a set of blisters. She heard something clank and looked upward. A pair of scuffed and stained work boots dangled near the center of the overhang. Vrabel appeared a moment later, his face red and strained. The cut on his forehead had opened again, and a thin line of blood trickled from his scalp. He swung until he could put his feet on the ledge. He groaned and started untying the hose from his waist. "We're losing Gomez," he said. "Pretty sure he's dying." "How's Bill going to get him down here?" she asked. Vrabel shrugged. "I don't know. I fought to be the last man out, but Bill said I couldn't hold the hose." He touched the top of his head and winced. "I think he was right, but I don't know how he's going to—" There was a scream from above them. They looked at one another. Shauna's blood went cold. What was that? Something clanged off the overhang. A pair of large boots came into view along with droplets of blood falling past them. Bill was climbing down the hose as fast as he could. He swung himself to the ledge and managed to get his footing. He pushed his back against the wall. "We're so fucked," he said. "What happened? Where's Gomez?" Bill shook his head. "It ate him. From the inside, I think." He wiped his bloody hands on his heavy denim pants. "He started coughing up sludge, and then his skin just—" Bill paused to cough. "Just bubbled away. I got the fuck out of there." "God damn it," Vrabel said, his face drained of color. "Gomez was my friend." The big man nodded. "I know, boss. Mine too." Something crackled above them. "We need to get off this thing, and right fucking now." Shauna didn't wait to be told twice. Back against the steel wall, she shuffled starboard. Vrabel and Bill followed. When she reached the end of the superstructure, she turned her head around the corner. "Right back where we started," she said. The flight of stairs they'd climbed to start their failed mission rose upward. She stared at it for a moment. The steel supports holding up the stairs were at least a meter away from the lip. "God damn it," she said, and continued shuffling toward it. Bill and Vrabel rounded the corner and saw what she saw. Bill cursed from behind her. "Anyone good at jumping?" Vrabel panted. "You have to be fucking kidding me. I can barely see straight." "We can't switch positions, girl," Bill said. "There's not enough room. You're gonna have to jump first."